Good morning, all. So today we'll see. First, we'll see what are the topics we discussed in the last class, and we'll move on to the topics of today's class. So, what are the topics we have studied in the previous class? Is slide visible? Is slide visible? Yes, is slide visible? ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, what are the topics we discussed in the last class? In this chapter, we have started with introduction to the inheritance relationship. Then, in the last class, we discussed about overriding base class methods in derived classes. Then, afterwards, the heuristics related to that overriding. After that, we discussed about the use of protected section in a base class, then the heuristics for the use of protected section. Afterwards, we discussed about the depth and width of the inheritance relationship, right? So normally, the most of the developers prefers to use up to 6 levels. Even though some developers have used up to 12 to 17 levels, but the problem with this is since no automated tools are available, so then identifying such levels is difficult by the designers, and hence they are most of the developers are fixing the level to 6. Why it is 6? Because the human short-term memory works up to 6 levels, hence normally they are considering it for 6. But if you consider if the previous heuristic says that as the inheritance relationship is deeper and deeper, then it is the better one because it is capturing more and more abstractions. Similarly, it is deeper as well as the inheritance relation should be with a broader one, means we can go on adding the derived classes for the existing base class. These heuristics I discussed in the previous class, right? So today you're going to study about the private, protected and public inheritance in C++. You already know what is the public, private and protected generally in object-oriented paradigm, right? So in the previous class, we discussed about public, private and protected with respect to the object-oriented approach, right? But here we are considering the private, protected and public inheritance in C++ programming language. Understood? No? So previously already studied private, protected and public inheritance with respect to the object-oriented paradigm. But here you are going to study the private, protected and public inheritance in the C++ programming language. Okay. So first we'll see what are these relationships in C++ and what is the difference between the public, private and protected inheritance relationship in C++. Okay. So as we know that the C++ language has implemented private, public and protected inheritance relationship. And if we consider the public inheritance, it is same as the general public inheritance of object-oriented paradigm. Okay, so what the public inheritance will do, or what is the public access area? The public access area will be accessed by or visible to the implementers as well as the users of that class. So same concept or same semantics we are using in C++ also. So public inheritance means in C++ the public area is visible to the users as well as implementers of that class. Next we'll see the private and protected inheritance relationships in C++. So the protected and the private inheritance relationships are used to capture the notion of inheritance for implementation. Okay, so these two, that is public and protected inheritance relationships, are used to capture the notion of inheritance for implementation. Means what? So here, if we consider the private and protected inheritance relationships in C++, what they do? So they in the inheritance relationship, the derived class gets a copy of the base class data. Then the implementers of the derived class gets access to the public section of the base class. But the users of the derived class do not get access to the public section of the base class. Why? Because here it is declared it as private and protected area. Okay, so we are not discussing about the public one because the public area is similar to the one we already discussed in the object oriented paradigm, right? So here we are considering the private and protected relationships. So the private and protected inheritance relationships have the semantics such as the derived class gets a copy of the base class data, and the implementers of the derived class get access to the public section of the base class. See here, so here we have the base class and the derived class. So when we declare it as a private and protected area, then what happens? The derived class gets the copy of the base class data, and the implementers of the derived class get access to the public section of the base class, but the users of the derived class do not get access to the public section of the base class. Now we consider the example of class A and class B. Okay, class A is the base class and class B is the derived class. So in the class A, if we declare it as a private and protected, then what the inheritance relationship will do? Then the derived class, that is class B, gets the copy of the class A data, as well as the implementers of class B gets access to the public section of the base class, but the users of the derived class will not have the access to the public section of the base class. Now you understood? Clear. So if we declare that as a private and protected area, then what happens? The derived class can access the copy of the base class data. Then the implementers of the derived class get access to the public section of the base class. This is about the accessing. But the users of the derived class will not get the access to the public section of the base class. Okay, so this is the common semantics for the private and protected area. Then what is the difference between the private and protected inheritance in C++? The difference is that protected inheritance allows implementers of grandchildren. See here, not the children, it is grandchildren. Implementers of grandchildren, that is derived classes of the derived class, to use the public section of the base class. Now let us consider that if class A is the base class, class B is the derived class. Similarly, class C is the derived class of class B. Then what happens if it is declared as the protected one, then the class C implementers can access the public section of class A. But if it declare it as the private inheritance or private area, then the grandchildren cannot access the public section of class A. Understood the difference between the private and protected inheritance? If it is declare it as a protected inheritance, then the grandchildren can access the public area of base class. Suppose class A is there, that is the base class, and class B is the derived class of class A, and class C is the derived class of class B. Then if in the class A, if we declare it as a protected area, then what happens? The class C implementers can access the public area of class A. Understood? But if we declare it as the private, then the class C implementers cannot access the public area of class A. So that is the difference between the private declaration and protected declaration. And since in the C++, since the classes can be inherited only once, then these relationships, that is the whether it may be the public, private, or protected relationships, are actually a wrapped form of containment, in that the containing class can contain only one object of the specified type. You already studied so many times about the containment relationships, right? So what happens in the C++? So in the C++, the classes can inherit only once. And hence these relationships, that is the public, private, and protected relationships, are actually a wrapped form of containment. So what is the wrapped form of containment? Means the containing class can contain only one object of the specified type. So a good heuristic for C++ is to avoid the use of private and protected inheritance. Instead of that, we can use the containment via data members. Means containment via data members means the even if we have the classes class A, class B, and class C, then class B, if it is using the containment relationship, then class B can contain all the data members of class A. Similarly, class C can contain the data members of class B. Here we are using the containment relationship rather than the inheritance relationship. Okay, because that is the good heuristic for C++. So instead of using the private or the protected inheritance, make use of the containment relationship via the data members. So in the name of readability, only public inheritance should be used in the C++ language. Okay. So for the readability issues, we are considering that only the public inheritance should be used in the C++ language. We need to avoid the use of private and protected inheritance. So this is about the private, protected, and public inheritance in C++. We'll see the difference between public, private, and protected inheritance in C++ by considering this diagram. So this is the general theory about the private, protected, and public inheritance in C++. Next, we'll see with the diagram how or what is the difference between private, protected, and public inheritance in C++. We'll consider this diagram and we'll see what it is. So here we have the fruit class, and we have one more class called as the apple class and Macintosh apple. So here the fruit class is the base class and apple class is the derived class for fruit class and base class for Macintosh apple. And Macintosh apple is the derived class for fruit class as well as for the apple class. So now if fruit is the parent, then the apple is the children, and then Macintosh children, apple becomes the grandchildren, right? So in the previous class, we have studied about the transitivity of inheritance. Means if apple class inherits from fruit class, and if Macintosh inherits from apple class, in turn, it indicates that Macintosh apple is inheriting the properties from the fruit class. That is called as the transitivity of inheritance, right? So here the same thing applies. So next we'll see the difference between the public, private, and protected relationship with respect to C++ language. So the following points are true with respect to the C++ programming language with respect to the public, private, and protected inheritance. So the first point says that anything in the private section of a class can be accessed only by the implementers of that class. See here we have three classes: fruit class, apple class, and Macintosh apple class. So whatever we have declared in the private section of the class, then that class will be accessed only by the implementers of that class. Now we'll see the private section of fruit and apple and Macintosh apple. What is the private section of fruit? It is color and weight. Here it is taste and seed number, and here it is archive location. Right? These are the private area for the class Macintosh apple, apple class, and the fruit class. So what the point one says? It says that anything in the private section of a class can be accessed only by the implementer of that class. Then this leads to the color and weight which are declared in the private area of the fruit class. Then these two will be accessed by the implementers of fruit class only. Okay. So the implementers of fruit class can access the color and weight, or the color and weight is visible to the implementers of fruit class. Similarly, the taste and seed number are visible to the implementers of apple class. And next one is the archive location, which is visible to the implementers of Macintosh. This is about the first point. Okay. Anything in the provide section of a class can be accessed by the implementer of that class. So here color and weight is accessed by the implementer of fruit class. Taste and seed number is accessed by the implementers of apple class. Archive location is accessed by the implementer of Macintosh apple. Understood now? Understood the first point? Yes. Is my voice audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next we'll see the second point. Anything in the protected section of a class can only be accessed by implementers of that class or the derived class. See the second point. Anything in the protected section of a class can only accessed by the implementers of that class or the derived class. Now we'll see what are the things declared in the protected area of the class. So here get weight is the get weight is declared in the protected area, or get weight is present in the protected area of fruit class. Similarly, gets in number is there in the protected area of apple class, and nothing is there in the Macintosh apple, right? Now what the second point says, it says that anything declared or anything present in the protected section of a class can only be accessed by the implementers of that class or the derived class. Now we'll see who all can access the get weight. So here the get weight is declared in the protected section, right? And this get weight can be accessed by the implementers of the fruit class as well as the implementers of the apple class and Macintosh class. Why? The apple class and Macintosh apple class are the derived class of fruit class. Understood? Hence, the implementers of the apple class and the Macintosh class can access the get weight. Okay, along with the implementers of apple and Macintosh apple, implementers of fruit class can also access the get weight. It is declared in the protected section. Similarly, the get seed number, which is present in the protected area of apple class, can be accessed by the implementers of apple class as well as the implementers of Macintosh class. Because see here, the get seed number is the protected is declared in the protected area, or it is present in the protected area, and the implementers of that class can access it. Similarly, the derived class of this class, which is the derived class of apple class, Macintosh apple is the derived class of apple class. Hence, the whatever the thing it is declared in the protected section is accessed by the implementers of apple class as well as the implementers of Macintosh class. Understood now? Understood the second point? Right?
Ma'am.
Okay, next we'll move on to the anything third point. Third point says that anything in the public section of a class can be accessed by the implementers of that class or direct users of that class. So third point says that anything which is present in the public section of a class can be accessed by the implementers of that class as well as the users of that class. Now, what are the things present in public class of fruit class? Print, cast and eat present in the fruit class. Similarly, core and bake is present in the apple class, and pick your own is the public area of Macintosh apple class. Now, so the public section, whatever is present in the public section is accessed by the implementers and users of that particular class only. Okay, next. See here, the print, cast and eat will be accessed by the implementers and as well as the users of fruit class. Similarly, the core and bake can be accessed by the implementers and users of apple class. Here, pick your own can be accessed by the implementers and users of Macintosh class only. And the public of the fruit class cannot be accessed by the apple class or by the Macintosh class. Understood? Because whatever the thing present in the public area can be accessed only by the implementers and users of that particular class, not by the derived classes. Okay, understood? Next, we'll see the fourth point. Anything in the public interface of a class can be accessed by implementers of its immediate derived class. So fourth point says that anything in the public interface of a class can be accessed by implementers of its immediate derived class. So according to point 4, whatever declared in the public area of that particular class. Here for the fruit class, print, cast and eat is declared in the public area, are present in the public area. Similarly, core and bake is present in the public area of apple, and the pick your own is present in the public area of Macintosh apple. So according to the fourth point, public interface of a class can be accessed by implementers of its derived class. So next, see here, if you consider for the fruit class, print, cast and eat is present in the public area. Then according to the third point, it is accessed by the implementers and the users of that class. And according to fourth point, it can be accessed by the implementers of immediate derived class also. Okay, so which is the immediate derived class for fruit? For fruit, apple is the immediate derived class. Hence, the implementers of apple class can access the public area of fruit class. But the implementers of Macintosh apple class cannot access the public area of fruit class. Why? Because it is not the immediate derived class. Here only apple class is the immediate derived class for fruit. Hence, the implementers of apple class can access the public area of fruit class. So hence, according to the third and fourth point, what it says, whatever present in the public area of the class can be accessed by the implementers and users of that particular class, and also the implementers of the immediate derived class. Understood? Now similarly, for the apple class, core and bake is present in the public area, right? Then this will be accessed by the implementers of its derived class. So implementers of Macintosh apple can access the public area of apple class because it is the immediate derived class for the apple class. Understood? So according to third and fourth point, what it says, the public area of the apple class can be accessed by the users and implementers of apple class as well as the implementers of Macintosh apple class. Now understood? So this is about the public, private and protected inheritance with respect to C++ language. Any doubt in this? Any doubt in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Shall I move on to next topic?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. Next, we'll see the real world examples for the specialization relationship. So you already studied in inheritance. We have two types of relationship. One is called as the generalization relationship, and second one is the specialization relationship. So from in this section and in the next section, you are going to study about real world examples of specialization and generalization. So in this here you are going to study the example for the specialization. Next, you are going to study the examples for a generalization. So you already know what is the generalization and the specialization. No need to explain it once again. So when we are talking about the inheritance with respect to the base class and the derived class. So base class, there we are considering it as a generalization relationship, and in the derived class we are talking about the specialization relationship. Okay, so by considering that, we are seeking the example or the real world example for the specialization. So we'll see one example for the specialization relationship. Consider that we are starting a new company, right? Let us consider that we are starting a new company, and when the new company is started, all the employees are the new employees. Okay, all the employees are the new employees, and all the employees belongs to that company. Okay, once the employees started working, then each employee will get a salary, sick time and medical plan benefits. Okay, each employee gets a salary, sick time and medical plan. Then a couple of methods applicable to new employee is taxes and benefits. So here two methods which are applicable to the new employee class. What are those methods? One is called as the taxes and second one is the benefits. Taxes method is to calculate the salary, calculate the tax from the salary of each employee. because whenever the employee gets the salary, you need to pay the tax, right? So to calculate the tax, we're using the taxes method. Okay, based on the employee salary, tax is going to be calculated. And second method is called as the benefits. Benefits whenever the employee falls sick. So then in order to what we can say, in order to get the benefit, because the medical plan is also implemented there, right? So then in order to get the benefit from the medical plan, we are using that method. Okay, benefits. So here we have the new company. The new company will have the employees. All the employees are treated as a new employees. Once the employees started working, after 1 month they are going to get the salary. Okay, so employee gets the salary. Along with the salary, they will have the benefits like sick time and medical plan means whenever the employee falls sick, then the sick leave is available for such employees. And during sick time, they can bear the expenditure through the medical plan. Okay, so here each new employee will get a salary, sick time, and medical plan. And we're defining two methods, taxes and benefits. Taxes to get calculate the tax of each employee, then benefits to calculate the benefits of the employee when to handle the sick time and the medical plan. So here the new employee class is defined or constructed. Clear? The new employee class is constructed, and employee class will have the salary, sick time, and medical plan. Along with that, two methods are defined, taxes and benefits. So after 6 months, let us consider that after 6 months, our company is running in a well manner, and we have to give the new benefits to the employees. So what are the new benefits is? So once the employee is there for the 6 months, then they are going to be regularized, and all the employees will be treated as the full employees. Means initially the employees are taken in the what contract basis. Let us consider after 6 months of working, all the employees means if the employee is worked for 6 months, then that employee is treated as a full employee, means it gets permanent. Okay, clear? So after 6 months, since the company is running well, the employee who worked for 6 months are treated as full employees. Okay, they are treated as full employees. Clear? So along with the original benefits of salary, sick time, medical plan, they are going to get additional benefits like dental plan, vacation, and car. Okay, along with the salary, sick time, and medical plan, the full employees or full time or the permanent employees will get the additional benefits such as the dental plan, vacation, and the car. Now we have to modify some part of the code in the taxes method and in the benefits method, because in the taxes method, as the employee becomes permanent, their salary going to be changed. Along with that, they are going to get more benefits. So we have to modify some part of the codes in benefits, because additional three benefits they are going to get: dental plan, vacation, and the car. Understood? So hence we have to modify some part of the code in taxes and benefits, so that all the thing will be included in that. Okay, because the full employee get class, or the full employee or the permanent employee are getting the additional benefit of dental plan, vacation, and the car, and that needs to be included. Clear? So when we have created the class called as the full employee class from the new employee class. Now the new employee class is the base class. Okay, from this new employee class, new class is created called as the full employee class. Now the full employee class is a special kind of new employee class. Here we have the new employee class. From that we are creating the full employee class, and this full employee class is the special kind of new employee class. Why? Because here we are using the inheritance relationship. Since inheritance is the relationship responsible for modeling the specialization, we claim that there is an inheritance relationship between the full employee and the new employee class, where the full employee class becomes the derived class of new employee class. Understood? So here we are employing the inheritance relationship. We'll see how the inheritance relationship is employed between the new employee and the full employee class. Here the new employee class is the base class and the full employee class is the derived class. We'll see that inheritance relationship here. So here by using the inheritance relationship, we have created a better employee design. Okay. Here, this is the basic one, basic new employee class. From that, we have created one more class called as the full employee class. Now, full employee classes is treated as a special kind of a new employee class. So here we are making use of the inheritance relationship. See here, with the inheritance relationship, we have created a better employee design where the new employee class becomes the base class and full employee class is the derived class, right? So the full employee class inherits some of the data members and the properties or the behavior from the base class. Now full employee inherits the data members such as salary, sick time and medical plan. Along with that, full employee is having special properties such as the dental plan, vacation, and the car. These are the additional benefit given to the full employee. Right. So here there is an inheritance property exists between the new employee and the full employee. So the new employee is the parent class and the full employee is the child class. Our new employee is the base class and full employee is the derived class. So derived class inherits the properties of the data members and the functions from the base class. Now, see here, along with these three, the full employee will have the dental plan, vacation, and the car. Then, what about the taxes and benefits? Here, the taxes is to be calculated and also the benefits. So here, the benefits method overrides the full, here, the full employee overrides the benefits of the method present in the new employee. Okay. Here, see here, because additional benefits are included for the full employee, hence the overriding takes place. Here, the full employee overrides the benefits method in the new employee. See here, the benefit method is overridden from the new employee. Why it is overridden? We're using this the same one, benefits. Along with that, full employee is modifying the code according to the benefits the full employee getting. So full employee is getting dental plan, vacation, and car benefits. So that need to be included in this, right? Hence, so here we are making use of the overriding property. So benefits method overrides the properties from the benefits of new employee class. Along with that, it adds the code related to dental plan, vacation, and car. So, okay, understood. So here, this is the inheritance relationship. Full employee inherits from the new employee. Along with that, the benefit method of full employee overrides from the benefit method of new employee. Understood? Any doubt in this? Any doubt? So
No,
this
ma'am.
is the real example for the specialization. Here, what is the specialization relationship? Full employee exhibits the specialization relationship. Why? Because when you compare the full employee with the new employee, full employee is having the properties of new employee. Along with that, it is having the additional properties with respect to the benefits, dental plan, vacation, and car. Hence, we'll say that full employee exhibits the specialized relationship with respect to the new employee class. Understood now? This is the real example for specialization. Any doubt in this? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Then we'll move on to the next topic, that is the heuristics, the trade-off, the design complexity and flexibility. So heuristic 5.6 says that all abstract classes must be base classes. So the heuristic 5.6 says that all abstract classes must be base classes. So means if a class cannot build objects of itself, then that class must be inherited by some derived class that doesn't know how to build objects. See here. whenever we are creating the class, that class must create the objectives for himself, right? If the class cannot create or cannot build the objects of itself, then that class must be inherited from some derived class, where that derived class doesn't know how to build the objects. For this, let us consider that this example we'll see we have the fruit class, apple class, and the Macintosh class. If the Macintosh apple class cannot build the objects for itself, then we'll say that this class is inherited from some derived class, where this derived class doesn't know how to build the objects. Now, is it clear that heuristic? So it says that whenever we have the class, then implicitly that class should create the objects. If the class is not able to build the object, then what it indicates? It indicates that that class has inherited from some derived class, where that derived class doesn't know how to build the objects. If this is not the case, then the functionality of the base class can never be accessed by any object in the system, and therefore the class is irrelevant in the given domain. So if it is not, then means if this is not true, then the functionality of the base class can never be accessed by any object in the system, and then the class is said to be the irrelevant class in that given domain. Understood? This is about the heuristic 5.6. So it says that all the abstract classes must be base class. And according to that, if the class doesn't build the objects itself, then that class must be inherited by some other derived class, where that derived class doesn't know how to build the objects. And if that is not the case, then the functionality of the base class can never be accessed by any object in the system, and that class is treated as the irrelevant class in the given domain. This is about heuristic 5.6, and we'll see the heuristic 5.7. Heuristic 5.7 says that all base classes should be abstract classes. So it says that all base classes should be abstract classes. And so this heuristic implies that all the roots of an inheritance tree should be abstract, while only the leaves should be concrete. So according to this heuristic says that all the base classes should be abstract classes, and all the derived classes should be concrete classes. See here, in this, new employee is the base class and full employee is the derived class. So according to that heuristic, the new employee class should be a abstract class, and full employee class should be a concrete class. So according to that heuristic, all the base classes should be abstract classes, and all the derived classes should be concrete classes. Then why this heuristic is required? Now we'll see one example of the same one, that is the inheritance model for the new employee and the full-time employee class. So we are considering the same example of the new and the full employee classes. Our company has been so successful that it takes new employees. Let's say here with this example I'll explain. Okay, we are considering the same example. See here, the basic example is this. So here we have the initially the company is started. In the company, the new employees are there. Then once the employee works for a month, then he is going to get a salary. Along with that, he is getting the sick time and medical plan benefits. Okay, and here we have the two methods, taxes and benefits, to calculate the tax and to calculate the benefits by considering the sick time and medical plan. So the extended of this is, once the company is started and it is working successful for 6 months, then all the employees who worked for that company for 6 months, all are treated as the full-time employees. Then along with the salary, sick time and medical plan, 3 additional benefits are given: dental plan, vacation and car. Right. Then we are using the inheritance relationship, and new class is constructed called the full employee. This is the derived class. which is inheriting from the new class. Okay, this is the inheritance relationship. Next, we'll see the extension of this in this example here. So as the company is running successful after 1 year, then the company wants to hire new employees. Okay, the company wants to hire the new employees. Okay, once the company hired new employees, then orientation has to be done for the new employees because we already have the employees. Those employees are treated as the full-time employees. And as the company is successful, it want to expand its if the company wants to expand, then to expand it is hiring new employees. Okay, once the new employees are hired, then we have to conduct the orientation program. Okay, we have to conduct the orientation program, and this orientation is not required for the employee, full-time employee. Why? Because the full-time employees are already there in the company, and all the full employees know the working of the company and in and out of the company. They they will not require the orientation program. Hence, we will create a new class called as the new employee. So this new employee will have the all properties of the all employee class. See here, there is a difference between this inheritance relationship. Here in this inheritance relationship, we have only one base class and one derived class. Base class is the new employee and derived class is the full employee. But once the new employees are hired, then we are changing the new employee class into a all employee class. So here new employee class is changed into all employee class, and we have created one more derived class called as the new employee class that inherits the properties from the all employee class. Clear? So because for the new employee orientation is required. But for the full employees, orientation is not required and it is treated as a separate derived class. Now, when we compare with this inheritance hierarchy, see here, this inheritance we have the new employee and full employee. Compare this inheritance hierarchy with this hierarchy. See here, in the previous one, we have the base class as the new employee class. But here, the new employee class is changed into all employee class. Now there is a global change in the name, right? Global change, right? We have to change the new employee into all employee, and that becomes the base class, and the new employee becomes the derived class, and it is accessing or inheriting the properties from all employee class. So then there is a then what about the code? So we have to modify the entire code. Why? Because we are overall modifying the inheritance relationship itself, right? We are creating the new all employee, a new class, and it is created in a global manner, and that becomes the base class. In that we are including salary, sick time, and medical plan. After that we are creating one more derived class called as the new employee, so that only to conduct the orientation program we are changing the entire inheritance hierarchy. Okay, that leads to the complexity, or the complexity increases. Why the complexity increases? Because we are modifying the entire code, and we are changing the name of the base class, and we are gone creating the number of derived classes. So then as we are changing everything, then the complexity increases, right? Then some of the developers argues that or some of the heuristics, some heuristics says that this is not required, means orientation creation of the new employee is not required just to perform the orientation. Some designers argues for that, or some developers argues for that, and some heuristics will not support this type of hierarchy. And hence, once again, we'll go for the new means another type of hierarchy. Here we'll have the all employee class, and the full employee is there. So the some heuristics says that this is not required, means new employee class is not required, and that class is called treated as the irrelevant class. Why this class is treated as the irrelevant class? Because the new employee, which is the derived class, it doesn't consisting of any data members or any methods. See here, the data members is there, methods is there for all employee class and full employee class. But for the new employee class, nothing is there. No data members, no methods or no properties. And such classes are treated as the irrelevant classes, and irrelevant classes should be deleted or should be avoided. And some of the designers or the developers will choose this type of inheritance hierarchy, and some of the developers will choose this type of inheritance hierarchy. So once again, it is depending on the implementers or the developers of the team. So some says that the new employee class is required, and some says that new employee class is not required and it is treated as the irrelevant class, because this new employee class doesn't consisting of any data members or the methods, right? And that is treated as the irrelevant class, and that type of class should be avoided in the inheritance hierarchy. So here, new employee is treated as an inheritance class. So some developers will go for this type of inheritance hierarchy, and some developers will go for this type of inheritance hierarchy. So whatever it may be. So here, as I said, this is over, right? So employee class with adding full employees. So here, that is deleted, right? And this common information could have been captured in an abstract base class called all employees, with the new and full employee classes become derived classes of this new abstract class. So here, the new employee and full employee becomes the new derived class of the abstract class all employee. But some designers are accept this type of inheritance hierarchy, but some designers treat this new employee as the irrelevant class and simply they avoid it. So this is about heuristic 5.7. All base classes should be abstract class, and the heuristic 5.6 is that all abstract classes must be base classes. So both are interrelated. See here, 5.6 says that all abstract classes must be base classes, and all base classes should be abstract classes. So the derived classes can capture the abstraction from the base class. Clear? So these are interrelated, 5.6 and 5.7. So this is about the heuristics that trade off design complexity and flexibility. So in the next class, you are going to study about the real world example for generalization. So in this class, you have studied about the private, protected, and public relationship with respect to C++ language, right? Private, protected, and public inheritance with respect to C++ language. After that, you have studied about the differences between public, private, and protected inheritance with respect to C++ language. And after that, you have studied about a real world example of specialization. Here we are considering an example of a employee, means considering the example of starting up a new company. Then the employees are treated as new employees. Afterwards, or after 6 months, they are treated as the full-time employees, and they are going to get additional benefits. And for that, we have defined the inheritance relationship. After that, you have studied the heuristics for the abstract classes. All abstract classes must be base classes, and all base classes should be abstract classes. So this is about what all the things you have studied in today's class. Tomorrow you are going to study about the real world example of generalization. Any doubt in this class?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no doubt. So if you have no doubt, then I'll end my class.
Okay.
Shall I end my class? Okay. Okay. Tomorrow we'll meet on tomorrow at 10:45, right? I'm having class at 10:45. We'll see tomorrow at 10:45 class. Okay. Goodbye then.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.